So in the space of a few days, Brittany Pettibone, Martin Sellner and Lauren Southern have all been denied entry to the UK. Now I'm just going to concentrate on Lauren Southern in this video because I don't really know that much about Brittany Pettibone. I've never really watched any of her videos, and I know even less about Martin Sellner and his group Generation Identity. By the way, awful choice of name. I mean, in the era of toxic, divisive identity politics, you call yourself Generation Identity? Yeah, good decision. But I will say, given the letter Pettibone received from the UK Home Office denying her entry, the reasons given do appear to be ridiculous on the face of it. Anyway, Lauren Southern was recently detained in Calais and subsequently denied access to the UK. But rather than me regurgitate the details, let's hear Lauren herself explain it at what I presume is the European Parliament.
After being detained for 6 hours, they gave me a form, and it says here, "You have asked for leave to enter the United Kingdom as a visitor for up to 5 days. However, by your own admission, on the 24th of February 2018, you were involved in the distribution of racist material in Luton. I believe that your actions whilst in the United Kingdom present a threat to the fundamental interests of society and to the public policy of the United Kingdom." The event that they are referring to is an event that I never at any point said or admitted to being racist material. It was a social experiment I was doing with a few people in Luton, referring to a Vice article claiming Jesus Christ may have been a gay man. We decided to do a spin-off and see how the public would react to other religions being called gay or LGBT religions. So we came out with signs, pretended to be left-wing presenters, and said, Allah is a gay god. Allah is a god for gays and homosexuals as well. To which the police confiscated our material. I never violated any laws. I cooperated with them. And yet, I guess I got the end of my social experiment. I got the result. Vice is perfectly allowed to state Jesus Christ may be gay. If you say Allah may be gay, you get detained under Schedule 7 Terrorism Act and banned from the country for racism. What in that statement has to do with race, I cannot tell you. It seems more like the UK is bringing back ancient blasphemy laws. That's what this seems like.
So that's the reason given for denying Southern entry. And here's a partial shot of the official letter Southern was reading from. Allegedly, Southern was involved in the distribution of racist material in Luton, and thus she presents a threat to the fundamental interests of society. Strong claims. Now, what were these materials? As you heard, in response to a Vice article, and I'm not sure if this is the one because it's dated 2015, but I couldn't find any others. Anyway, in response to a Vice article, Southern pictured here with Carolyn Robertson, and apparently Tommy Robinson, although I couldn't find any footage of him at the event, set up this stall and were handing out these flyers. So this is the source of racism. Now, I thought it was only the emotionally compromised bigotry bingo infants that made such ridiculous claims conflating criticism of, or in this case, making a joke about Islam and racism. But this is from the UK government citing racism against a religion. That claim itself seems a tad racist. It assumes all Muslims belong to one race, which is obviously false. Who would say something critical of Christianity was racist? It just doesn't make any sense. Now sure, this Southern called it a social experiment. I call it a stunt, is meant to provoke a reaction. Southern is not just a journalist. At times, she is an activist. And I think there are legitimate criticisms that can be made about some of the events she's participated in and reported on. Like everyone, she has her own biases and they can colour her judgment and opinions. But so what? She's still young, she's figuring out her politics, and she's bound to make mistakes. And at least she has the ovaries to go out where the action is. And no, this is not an excuse for sloppy or biased reporting, but even if you're opposed to everything Lauren Southern does, this particular action is not a credible reason to keep her out of the country. What we have here is an attempt to ring-fence criticism of one particular religion. And if you think about it, that view contains its own soft bigotry of low expectations. Don't make the Muslims angry. Not mentioned by Southern is that the reason her store was shut down and flyers confiscated was for their own safety, according to the police. And to be honest, that's the first thing I thought of when I saw this particular stunt. You'd have to be in a coma if you didn't know about the recent history of violent attacks on people in Europe for lampooning Islam. But again, this brings up the larger question. Why is the UK in a situation where someone that makes fun of a particular religion potentially in danger? Well, because of more than a decade now of cowardice on the part of politicians and the media. Here's Douglas Murray for a refresher course.
But we have learned some things in the last 10 years, and I'll dwell on them for a moment. We've learned in as clear a way as could possibly have been learnt by anybody, that most of the press in free Western countries are cowards. We've learned that most of our artistic establishment are cowards, and that most of our politicians are cowards. We've learned that industries that spend much of their year in awards ceremonies patting themselves and each other on the back for their bravery stop when an actual act of bravery may be required. We have watched as an entire liberal class of artists and writers and thinkers stop just at the point where bravery is needed. We've learned once again, for the first time in some centuries in Europe, about blasphemy. Again, if 20 years ago you'd have said the early years of the 21st century in Europe will be dominated by a discussion of blasphemy, people would have said, what? You don't mean repeal of blasphemy laws. You mean, no, actually the discussion about blasphemy. Probably the next thing people would have said was, when did the Spanish Inquisition get back into Europe? How did that happen? No, this is a different type of blasphemy we're talking about. Nobody would have believed you. They'd have thought all of your critical faculties were off, all your prediction mechanisms had gone awry.
And we can't say we weren't warned. Let's go back even further.
This is very urgent business, ladies and gentlemen, I beseech you. Resist it while you still can, and before the right to complain is taken away from you, which will be the next thing. You will be told you can't complain because you're Islamophobic. The term is already being introduced into the culture as if it was an accusation of race hatred, for example, or bigotry, whereas it's only the objection to the preachings of a very extreme and absolutist religion. Watch out for these symptoms. They are not just symptoms of surrender, very often ecumenically offered to you by men of God in other robes, Christian and Jewish and smarmy ecumenical. These are the ones who will hold open the gates for the barbarians. The barbarians never take a city till someone holds the gates open for them. And it's your own preachers who will do it for you, and your own multicultural authorities who will do it for you. Resist it while you can. And if you wonder what will happen if you don't, look and see how a cricket team in Middlesex in England had to change its name by force last week, because it was called, and had been for years, the Middlesex Crusaders. Look and see how stories about little pigs can't be taught to children in English schools anymore, lest offence be taken by the religion of peace. Resist it while you can.
The UK is in this situation because the political and media elites have consistently failed to have honest conversations about the nature of the problem, because it might cause offence. And of course, that is the worst crime of all in today's world. Yeah, Londoners and other city dwellers across the Western world are told that huge cement bollards blocking major thoroughfares are just part of life in the big city. Just get used to it. But to question why those measures are necessary is akin to blasphemy. Brendan O'Neill, writing in Spiked Online, wrote of the long and troubled relationship the UK has had with blasphemy laws. That someone has been banned from Britain for, among other things, saying Allah is gay should send shivers down the spine of all genuine liberals. It is testament to the long and difficult and strange struggle for free speech in Britain that people have actually been dragged to court and sentenced to prison in this country for the right to imply that deities are gay. It was in 1976 when Gay News published a poem titled "The Love That Dare Not Speak Its Name," which was a fantasy involving a Roman centurion filleting Jesus Christ and bringing him to orgasm. Mary Whitehouse brought a private blasphemy case against Gay News and won. The publisher of the magazine was fined £500 and sentenced to 9 months in jail, suspended. In 1976, in many people's living memory, liberals and gay rights activists were outraged by this case. The great barrister and author and inventor of Rumpole of the Bailey, John Mortimer, who defended Gay News in court, said it was as if we'd been whisked off on some time machine back to the Middle Ages. In the fallout from this medieval punishment in 1970s Britain, discomfort with our blasphemy laws grew, and eventually they were scrubbed off the statute books in 2008. As one observer put it, this was in large part down to Gay News and its poem. It was the poem that broke the blasphemy laws. So the suggestion that Christ was gay might have been offensive to many, but it helped to make us all freer by provoking and eventually ending the common law of blasphemous libel. Proof, if we needed it, that the right to offend is central to liberty and progress. And what do the authorities think they're accomplishing by silencing the views of Lauren Southern, Brittany Pettibone and Martin Sellner? How many more people went down to Speaker's Corner just to hear Tommy Robinson give the speech that Sellner was going to give than otherwise would have? How many more are now just aware of who Sellner, Pettibone and Southern are because of this state-sponsored censorship? And now the trio are planning to sue the UK government. So well done, idiots. You just created a bigger problem for yourselves that you could have avoided if you had just allowed people to exercise their right to free speech. I'll see you next time.